All right. I think we have landed. And as soon as I see a flying heart or a comment or something, I will know. Oh, I think I just saw one. I think we've landed. Hitting record. Here we go. Good evening, Dani. How are you?
I am well. How are you? You look so pretty today.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm wearing a really cool shirt that my friend
No one
that
can see.
I'm wearing a really cool shirt from my friend who just found out that more than a decade ago she was unknowingly canceled from a community that she had no idea was mad at her. Right?
Had no idea, which is kind of like sums up the particular pariah archetype that I have been known to carry, that I am clueless that people are mad at me or hate me. So I don't like I just go along like everything's fine and I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like we all are so busy balancing like our like what's okay for us, like what sort of oddities about other people we can accept and what behaviors of ours feel necessary in order to be able to cope and how that maps up with like what some other individual or group of people feel triggered by or have thoughts about. It creates this scenario where a lot of times people walk around believing not incorrectly that someone doesn't like them or someone's mad at them, and then when someone really doesn't like them or isn't mad at them they have no clue and things like that, right? I've certainly been a victim to that and also felt that from the other side before, right? So it is an interesting thing, but I have to tell you, I was on Instagram the other day. I was reading your little tribute to your friend Tom Robbins, and one of my favorite things about you is that you have no problem to just reach out to someone, no matter how famous they are or like well respected they are in some community or another or whatever, and like treat them like they're like just a normal person and start dialogue with them and always have it be memorable, whether they like you or not. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like nobody forgets you, but a lot of these people develop a fondness for you, and oftentimes it even is after like maybe a rough start or like some weird thing in the middle or whatever it is. But that like I can tell like eventually one of the things becomes not just like I like this person and we have interesting interactions, but like even the oddities that were at times uncomfortable are like part of the charm, right? You're very good at cultivating these relationships with, in some cases, like incredibly accomplished and famous people. But you like talk to them like the same way like you have some like old Scottish woman that you're a pen pal with, right? That hasn't left the green field in 200 years or whatever it is. I love it.
Thank
It's
you.
adorable. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I respect the balls to reach out because most of the time I'm just like, I'm not even going to try with this person, even though like I have something I would like to tell them and even something that I think they might find interesting. Like they must receive a million emails and mine's just going to be annoying. So, but you never let that stop you. So I respect
I've
that.
never I think it's like well I was trained to do that as a journalist. Like we were trained to like find the famous people, find the hard people, make the connection. That was part of my training. And then Tom and I started pen paling in like 2005, I think, maybe even 2004. It was never on email. It was always snail mail. The world hadn't gone quite the cuckoo way that it's gone now.
Hmm.
Um, so I think he just appreciated it.
Yeah. 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 That's what it sounded like. So I love that some of your communications are archived in a university library.
I had no idea.
That is
Someone messaged
awesome.
me about that in like, I think it was 2015. They're like, "Do you know that your letters are in this library?" And I had no idea. And then I got a bug up my ass. It was only last year to look it up online, and there's like a whole thing, and a lot of them are online, which is how I got some of those images.
That's so cool. It probably is just that like somebody who wanted to make sure that like when he was gone, they had some of his stuff, preserved for people to look at later. And it was probably in that collection,
Yeah.
right? And that's cool that they put all of it there. They didn't be like, this looks like a personal letter, we'll leave it out or whatever it is, right? That's kind of cool that it's all there. So
Yeah.
yes,
And I mean, it's a testament to what a badass Tom Robbins
I don't even
was.
who is Tom Robbins.
So Tom Robbins,
I know who Tim Robbins is, but I don't know who Tom Robbins
he's
is.
a literary genius. He wrote Skinny Legs and All, Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates. He wrote the Someone with Uma Thurman.
Okay.
He was a fiction writer, but he was very psychedelic. He was very in with McKenna and Robert Anton Wilson, but he
Yeah.
only wrote fiction and he had this like wild imagination and he was very prone to like mischief and like, you know, railing against the machine and authority. He was in this great documentary way back, I think it was early 2000s, called One Giant Leap with the number one.
Mm-hmm.
And there were interviews with a lot of kind of like people with expanded consciousness and wisdom keepers. And that's when I kind of clued into like, oh, beyond just writing these amazing novels, he's an exceptional thinker who's really traveled far beyond the boundaries of where most humans jiving with consensus reality go. You would love him. You would really love him. I don't know if you ever read fiction, but I really can't recommend him highly enough. His first book was called Another Roadside Attraction.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll look
he
into it.
is amazing.
I used to read a lot of fiction and every once in a while I still do. But usually if I look at someone's list of things they've written, I can find one that looks appealing to me, even if it's in a genre that doesn't normally appeal to me. So I'll take a look.
Yeah.
I will take a look. All right. So lots going on this week. Whatever the fuck this is, this op is in full, right? It's in full sighing. It is fully sighing this week. The op is fully sighing.
Word. Maximum sigh.
Maximum sigh, right? It's like it's I don't even know where to start. It's hard to go like, okay, yeah, like this is the one and the others don't really matter as much, right? Like it's just like a dizzying array of mostly bullshit, but with a few nuggets of interesting, maybe slightly non-bullshitty stuff. So
There's so much, and I know that you have a heart out today. I did not bring the Steve Bannon interview that like, just melts. But I heard that a number of state AGs got together and are suing Fauci. I think that's pretty cool. New Mexico is making national news, which is fascinating. Someone started a New Mexico Doge. And this, like, I don't know if you remember when Josh Hawley was interrogating Deb Haaland. She was like head of Wildlife Conservancy and like millions of dollars just gone totally unaccounted for. She's this native woman who announced that she's running in New Mexico. So I've been tracking a lot of local stuff this week and just like having big hearts in my eyes while watching Bannon.
what was the interview with Bannon that was so heart melting?
It just came out. Let me see. I have so many things pulled up. It was called "A Lot of You Are Going to Prison." I love the title.
Oh, I think I saw that come into my feed. Yeah. Okay.
On GB News, but it's just it's about an hour and a half. And of course, you know, we know his take. He's super pro-Trump and all of that, but he's really smart, and I like how he's just breaking down the whole thing. What I love about Bannon, he's consistent.
Right. Yeah, he does. He doesn't feel like he doesn't feel wishy-washy or like quite as able to be bought off as some of these others. Like, oh no, he'd rather just go to prison than like say a thing he thinks is dumb.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
And you know, I've never really looked into the sort of mechanics of his involvement with Breitbart News and what role he played there. And I suppose like if there was maybe something to try to understand another part of him that we or I don't completely understand, that might be the place to look. Yeah, he does seem to me like it's like, nah, I'll just do the fucking 3 months in jail rather than like say a dumb thing that I'll regret later.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's badass. He talks about going to jail and he talks about I mean, I pulled a little clip, but we have so much on the plate. But he talked about like basically no one gives a shit about Biden's Fauci pardons. They're going after him.
Yeah. Well, I think like that's, like they're only pardoned in one jurisdiction, right? And so, and only for things from that particular period of time, right? And we know that, I know Fauci is from 2014, right? Which is like
Correct.
when all of these weird like stopping, starting of gain of function and Eco Health Alliance stuff is or whatever. But from everything that's been like laid out, we can track a lot of these sort of moves and procedures that he tends to use over and over again, all the way back to HIV crisis. And so there's probably things to pull from, right?
That's what was weird to me, that it wasn't like a sweeping pardon, that it wouldn't go back to AZT because everyone used to know how much, how gross that situation was and how many people he killed, allegedly.
Right.
But anyway, I know you have a heart out. So
Yeah.
where do we want to start?
Okay. All right. By the way, we happened to just coincidentally watch Dallas Buyers Club this week, which I hadn't seen before, which is really kind of all about that.
Yep.
Yeah, which is kind of, so yeah, it's funny that you brought that up and we just watched that. Okay, let's start here. All right, so just as we were getting started here, the news came through that Tulsi has been confirmed, just as we always knew she would be, right?
Shocker.
However, that said, I feel super comfortable offering endless criticism and critique. And so when someone does something that regardless of what their ulterior motives are or what other bullshit they're, doing, does something that is true and brave, right? Like I will give them credit for that as well. And it also just makes you wonder, like, if you're willing to get up there and say these things, like, why were you being such a weird coward about the 702 thing 2 weeks ago? Right? Like even within some of her testimony, I don't think I'm not sure if it's in the clip that it's not in the clip I'm playing today, but I've seen other clips. She actually backtracks on the concession that she made a few weeks ago within her testimony. So I'm like confused as to what that was about. But, I have to give her credit where credit is due here. And so do our friends over at the Gray Zone, Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal. So fair use.
Tulsi Gabbard made history recently by, for the first time in the U.S. government setting, acknowledging the existence of the OPCW whistleblowers. This came when Arizona Senator Mark Kelly was trying to grill her for daring to question allegations that the former government of Syria, led by Bashar al-Assad, used chemical weapons. And she brought up the OPCW whistleblowers. And that was a very important moment. And you pointed this out also for the first time in the U.S. government setting. Somebody acknowledged the scandal that was the U.S. dirty war on Syria, in which the U.S. openly sided with an al-Qaeda dominated insurgency. And Tulsi Gabbard gave a very searing response also to Mark Kelly about that, calling this out for the first time ever in the U.S. government setting, that this dirty war that entailed the U.S. siding with al-Qaeda was acknowledged. In her opening statement at the hearing, Tulsi Gabbard quoted that Jake Sullivan email that we always quote from February 2012 to Hillary Clinton: Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria.
Hello, Mark Barton here.
One of these Sandy Hook commercials is gonna fucking stop.
Time anyone has ever, I think, quoted that email in a U.S. government setting. And this is what Tulsi Gabbard said to Mark Kelly about her opposition to that dirty war.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Gabbard, when Russia was denying us use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump This is a quote. "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
And
not in our
I
interest.
appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
So that really captures it right there. Notice he can't check.
So I'll stop right there, right? But there's no, like, he's not saying that what she's saying is false. He's saying that because truth aligns with people who we say we oppose, our information has to be the opposite of that, and it comes from our intelligence agencies. And so the problem is not that you're telling the truth now. The problem is that you weren't willing to believe the lie before and parrot it like the rest of us had. It's right. That was like the ridiculous way he made himself look with this line of questioning, which went on for a bit, was like embarrassing, right? But the sort of authority and aggression that came into her voice at one point, right? Like when she was talking about like why this isn't a problem to everybody that we're doing this, like that's the streak in her that is why so many people develop some level of belief in her, even all the way back in like 2012, 2013 and whatnot. And so that still lives in her somewhere. And it's so interesting how it plays hide and seek depending on the situation she finds herself in and like what is going on. The other thing is, if she's obviously read enough documentation or is good enough at connect the dots to have figured that out, how is it that she has not asked herself the question of whether or not that was the first time that the United States and al-Qaeda had worked together to create a terrorist event? Right? Because her founding principle and everything is what happened on 9/11 that al-Qaeda did. Right? And so this is where it's like, I can't buy. And this is where the questions start to arise with her, is like, are all of her political positions uniquely arranged to fit the ideology of the cult she grew up in, right? Is this, just naked, like, climber syndrome, right? Like trying, she'll say whatever she has to do to move up in power. And for me, like, while I feel like she's ambitious and she likes that, it feels more fundamental. It feels more like it's the first thing, like the cult kind of thing right there. right? You know, what is this? And how, like, if they're script writing here, like, it's not like I'm not a genius to have figured out that how is it that she, you know, recognizes the problem of the United States and Al Qaeda colluding in one instance and can't ask the question about either A, has it happened before, or B, I wonder where Al Qaeda came from in the first place, in which case she would look into it, which she's obviously capable of doing, and find out that Al Qaeda is wholly a creation of, you know, Western powers. Go ahead.
Okay, I couldn't disagree more because you are a genius and you ask the questions that most people don't ask. And it's something that I see consistently is your frustration with people who aren't thinking in as expansive or multidimensional way as you think. So I think it's not out of the ordinary that she isn't asking those questions, because she doesn't strike me as an original thinker. I think she's a critical thinker, and I think she's smart and fierce. Like you mentioned, that aspect of her that captures, you know, people who are vying for justice and for freedom. But I do think she's super ambitious. We know that because of her military background, her cult background, that she is programmed. So who knows how she's being steered to not ask these things. But I also think that someone like Tulsi, who did run for president, who does have these big political ambitions, really only has a certain amount of bandwidth and thought processes to allot to the many, many things on her plate. So just playing devil's advocate, it doesn't strike me as suspicious that she hasn't asked further back, because her mind isn't operating the way your mind is operating.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like whatever is operant in her, like its starting point was September 11th, 2001, right? Everything else before that is like some other person, some other life, some sort of blank slate. And that was like the source code of everything, is like that day forward. And so we're dealing with like this sort of one sort of time domain, right? That is the period of time sort of since then, and not sort of looking at what preceded it or what might come when we get past this sort of space that she is sort of designed to be operant in.
But I think that's the key. She is designed to be operant in this space. She devoted herself to the military. That's no small feat. She was at war with other people. She wants to be the president of the United States. She is so devoted to this construct working and an idea that she can fix it, that she cannot question the construct to the extent that you and I question the construct, because it will destroy her worldview, her career path, everything she was trained and reared to do. I just think it's too much of a psycho-emotional ask, given how invested she is in these systems.
Yeah, no, I agree. But so, you know, I appreciate the moment of clarity and the truths told, and the sort of clown show it made. The other, you know, Mark Kelly, who of course is the former astronaut married to Gabby, what was her name? The one who got like shot at that thing in Arizona, Gabby Gifford, right? Remember that whole weird thing with like that guy who like went to she was running for Congress or Senate, and then the kid went there and he shot her. And then like later it was like revealed that he had all of these like weird posts that he'd made on YouTube that were like clearly he was talking about like some experience he has called like conscious dreaming or whatever it is, and that he, you know, he had sort of like it sounded like, you know, he had been exposed to some sort of psychotronic weaponry or MK Ultra style something or other, right? But that's her husband right there, who used to be an astronaut. So back to the psychotronic weaponry and MK Ultra style, right? But he looked like a ridiculous clown, and there was a bunch of other weird things like that sort of in there. I thought she did really well, right? Like
I think all of the establishment pushback against Tulsi is very clown-like.
So I mean, it's like it's embarrassing clown-like though. It's like
so embarrassed, and they don't care. Like, they have no self-respect or self-awareness. They're just pushing the clown show forward. But I haven't heard, again, established pushback. None of it makes any sense on any level.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. All right. So that was my Tulsi piece. Do you have anything that sort of strings along with that? Or where should we go next?
I kind of want to do the Bretts just because they're two back to back.
Let's do them.
And they feel kind
Everybody
of
would be disappointed if we didn't have a little bit of Brett in our salad, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know how much people enjoy the Brett stuff, but
Oh, I think people are highly amused by the ongoing antagonism and the things we're able to elicit in response.
Yeah, and I also appreciate how there's more and more pushback is happening. All right, so let me pull up the screen share. Brett was on Joe Rogan last week.
Yeah,
This
it
week.
was so embarrassing.
It was beyond embarrassing. Notice he has his new, like, I'm a bro. I wear a flannel over a Henley that I got at Costco outfit. Okay, so there's a lot from this, and I know you and I are going to do kind of a longer show about
this 7-second trick helped me at the age of 62 eliminate.
We're going to do a longer show about the Easter egg he dropped at the end.
Yep.
But I just wanted to talk about this piece, and then it's going to lead us into a due dissidence thing. So,
very good.
Here we go, fair use. And this is, I also want to say what he's about to say, he said a version of on his Walter Kern interview as well. Okay, here we go. Oh, that wasn't the right button. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Pause. Brett, you dum-dum, okay? Don't you think that those people who you think were right about COVID only because they don't believe anything, maybe, first of all, I don't think all of the people who are right about COVID don't believe anything, though that is certainly a subset of the people and not without good reason. But don't you think how they got to the point where they didn't fall for COVID from the beginning was prior experience with one of these things where they got it wrong and had to course correct and think and reflect and all of that kind of stuff, and maybe had that happen multiple times before they started to recognize that there were signs and patterns and people who always showed up and whatever. And most of those people did not immediately, after realizing that they had once gotten something wrong and over the course of its run shifted positions and were now in the position where they saw things correctly, did not feel like that they should be like in charge of making the push to make sure this, that, or the other thing never happens again, or explaining to everybody else, how right they were, except for the moment before when they were wrong. Like, that's how it works. That's how people get to a place where they either A, recognize bullshit when they see it, or B, become so cynical that they don't believe anything, because the more you do this, the longer you look at it, it's the same cast of characters conducting the clown show every fucking time. Have you ever seen Scooby-Doo? Brent, have you ever seen Scooby-Doo? If not, that's your homework. Go ahead.
That was priceless. So I love that he's devolved into name calling and marginalizing, very standard issue propaganda technique. And he says that doesn't demonstrate anything. It's like, are we auditioning? Are we trying to, I don't think we were doing what we were doing from the get-go, from the jump, from second one to audition to be part of Brett's team. I think we were just doing what we do, which is recognize patterns, which is like prime characteristic of intelligence. But he makes it seem like we were auditioning and we didn't impress him, Emily. We just didn't impress Brett with getting it right. But instead, the people we should be listening to are the ones who got it wrong and have demonstrated that they could figure things out 2 years after the fact, 4 years after the fact, kind of, because we have another clip.
Correct. The other thing is, and this, shows that you haven't done your homework. If you go back to the shows during COVID, you can find you and I disagreeing. We both weren't buying it, but we were disagreeing about what should be done, how we should handle and manage the situation, right? How we on all levels. In fact, I don't remember if this was something public on YouTube with you or if this was something in one of my other shows or group chats or whatever. But very early on, I remember making a very unpopular statement in my community, right? And I explained why I was making it, not become so anti-mask that if a good reason ever arose to wear a mask, that you would be averse to wearing one because you were so identified with the, being too smart to wear a mask and everyone who wears a mask is a mind-controlled idiot and whatever it is, right? And, a lot of people didn't like that. Now, I wasn't thinking when I was saying that, it wasn't like, well, maybe we will find out it's serious and then we will. That wasn't what I was thinking. But like, I don't know, there was just some pretty crazy fires in Los Angeles and some people don't want to breathe that, right? Other people have health conditions or have to be around people that have health conditions, and there actually are scenarios where, like, there's a million reasons why people do what they do and why you might one day need to do something that right now under the current circumstances seemed like a dumb thing to do, right? And I was willing to make myself unpopular because I was like, one of the things that seemed like a possibility to me was that get a certain subset of difficult to manage people to become so anti-mask that then later there could be something that actually might necessitate wearing a mask, and those people would choose not to wear them, and so then they would be taken care of by whatever it is. So we have to be careful, like when we do like a polarizing move or move all the way to one side of a spectrum, that we don't become like so stuck in that if something different happens, we can't see it because we're so busy being anti-mask, right? And that wasn't popular, and I sat in that unpopularity, and I had to be fine with that. And you and I had arguments about, whether you should abstain from eating food because any store you had to go into. We had lots of arguments during COVID, on and off the air, right? Like a few crazy ones, right? And so, like, it isn't like we just all were in kumbaya and are not believing anything.
Well,
right?
And it also just discounts like our entire realm, like people who study these patterns,
Correct.
Truthers, conspiracy theorists, whatever. And it was, what I love about his delivery, it was so like infantile. It was so like an 8-year-old. I'm not impressed. That doesn't prove anything. Like it was just so lame. Like that's what he's devolved to.
Yeah, but it's not surprising.
No.
Not
so
surprising.
then the kicker. And I want us to remember, oh shoot, I'm spinning beach balling. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, it's not letting me share the screen and I'm like stuck on spinning beach ball.
Okay.
Do you maybe want to pull it up?
Okay, so what is the clip?
Do you have the show up?
I'll get it up right now.
Shit.
I'll get it up. No worries.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh, wait. Oh, I thought it was letting me. Wait, it might let me. My computer's so...
I've got it.
Okay. So it is 1:09:10, 1 hour, 9 minutes, 10 seconds.
All right, let me just get through this commercial and then I'll pull it. 1:09:10. All right, why did I just do that? Oh, I just messed up. What did I just do? Shit. Okay, hold on. Go back to that one. There you go. 1:09:10. Okay, 1:09. Okay.
No, right.
Here we go. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make it small so that we don't get a ding dong. And here we go.
Pause. So they're talking about Smith-Mundt, which Brett clearly hasn't heard of, but I want us to all note the strategy. He's embarrassed that he doesn't know what Joe's talking about. And Joe's right, it was 2012. So he brings up this other thing. It's not this which does this, lest the audience think in that gap of unknowing that Brett is full of shit as he is.
All right.
Convince
Pause.
people.
That is exactly what we have discovered. It's a new discovery. The rest of us have known about Smith-Mundt, have been tracking this going on, but Brett, who's never heard of Smith-Mundt, but still thinks that he should be at the front of this conversation, made a discovery about propaganda.
Well, correct. And this is also could be a reason why you have a group of people who don't believe anything because of that. And so when you're like, these dum-dums don't believe anything. Well, wait a second. Once your government says we're allowed to feed you the same lies we feed to people all around the world, then the only sane position is like, I don't believe anything. I either know it or I don't know it. And that's it. And everything else, right? Belief is the enemy of knowing.
I did a show that came out a couple weeks ago called Smith-Mundt is Everything. And the entire podcast was about Smith-Mundt. You cannot lobby to be leading Rescue the Republic, all the freedom stuff, whatever, if you've never heard of the Smith-Mundt Act and you don't understand how that is driving this whole thing. It's so like, it's amazing that this happened in the same show that he called us cynics and said that doesn't prove anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the whole, like, it's like thinking that you like discovered water because it came out of the fountain at the gym, right?
Right.
And then you go out and you're like, oh my God, it's the same stuff that's in the lake, but now it's like, whatever it is, like, it doesn't, oh my God. Yeah. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
Over the top.
Well, this is also how you know, like this, he just admitted how he was still completely asleep just not that long ago, right? So, like, anybody who's in Brett's audience who knew about the Smith-Mundt Act before Brett just found out now about it, and you think that he's a genius and a wonderful thought, because it's like the most disgusting, thing when you go into his comment section and people are like, you guys make me sane and unsane, but whatever, all that
Do you
shit.
think those are real? I feel like those are like bought and paid for, like his whole thing.
Well, I think there's some of them, and there are certainly bots, but I'm sure there's some who are in there who are real, because if no other reason, they're influenced by those bots to feel like, yeah, I should really, whatever it is. But like, I'm sorry, like, anybody who knew what the Smith-Mundt Act is should not be taking direction as to like what would be a good idea politically or socially for us to like evolve into from him.
It's so over the top. Like, those things right there are completely over the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to see if I could share the screen because I have all these tabs pulled up for the next piece.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna try. Would you? Would you?
You got it.
Oh, it's working?
It's going a little slowly, but it tells me you're going to start. Here it is. It's right there.
Okay, it's all working out. Okay, so this is going completely the other direction. This is Russell and Keaton's take on this, and we're gonna go a little bit out of order. This is just, we'll see if it pops up. All right, fair use.
Calling all TradingView traders.
Sorry. At least it's not Sandy Hook. Okay, so this is just candy for us, and then we'll get into the meat of the matter.
All right. Dessert first. I love it.
Correct.
That's why he says, yeah, they have to give themselves plausible deniability by cloaking these donations to make it look like there's something they're not. Again, it's being a good guest and a good friend, but he definitely knows where Joe is going, and he knows that it's wrong. I don't know if Joe...
Okay, so we'll get into, it's a little bit nonlinear, but I know our audience is multidimensional and brilliant, so we can all track. But basically, they're talking about this supposed error, and Keaton's perspective is that Joe's a moron who has no fucking idea what he's talking about, and brilliant Brett is just being nice, where it's like completely the inverse. So once again, I'm just a little suspect of Keaton's ability to read people.
And I think it's fair. I think that again, there's there's two things going on. I think a recency of a certain level of awakening, right? Like not that long ago, they were firm, like progressives, leftists, and they still come from a lot of that ideology. And so their arc of like discovery on some other things has been short. And then also just still like Keaton, even I think more so than Russell, or like Russell has like more is better at sort of cross referencing all of the files that are in his head of the new information he's picked up against the old things he's known than Keaton is. And so like I think while Russell still has a lot of like morals that align with that sort of progressive leftism, he has a recognition of the place that it sits at the table with all of the rest of the stuff, right? Yeah. Whereas Keaton still thinks that like there's a morality behind that is correct, and we should lead more into that, right? And sees things a little more through that lens. So I think it's kind of two things. It's kind of like recency, like not completely grokking the whole scenario with the new arc of understanding, and then also still much more swayed by that ideology.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, picking up.
Joe Rogan knows that he's wrong. I have a feeling he just doesn't bother looking into things. He probably scrolls Twitter.
I mean, you're putting a much kinder interpretation on Weinstein than I would. He's a fucking slimy, grifting scumbag.
Yep.
Who knows where his bread is buttered.
Well, that's what
that would be my read on.
I mean, Weinstein. I said it. I mean, that's yes.
So that was just for us. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit longer, but I think it's important for us. So bear with me. Fair use.
We've been talking quite a bit about Doge and the USAID and the whole sort of package, this whole sort of movements, this whole sort of, dissembling of the administrative state. And, as Shama referenced earlier, the segment that we just put out, Elon Musk saying it's not the meaningful divide in society is not between the rich and everyone else, but between the bureaucrats and everyone else. And I think that is manipulative to the point where I consider that to be a psyop, may as well be an organized psyop, even if it's just a disorganized one at this point. Although it's not too disorganized, I should say. But in keeping with that, I did want to play some of this. So Chief Nerd tweets out, Joe Rogan, Elizabeth Warren said she's never received any money from pharmaceutical drug companies and never received any monies from PACs. Then, of course, underneath it, community note strikes again. So Joe Rogan had Brett Weinstein on the show. And I watched this part of it, but I wanted some context. So I went back and I watched the episode from the beginning. And thankfully, this comes up about 7 minutes in. So I didn't have to watch too much of it to hear what came before this. So we are going to start about a minute before this, where Joe Rogan talks about how one of the Doge uncoverings is $40 billion spent on 8 electric car charging ports. And then we're going to get into this part. So we'll back up a little bit. Obviously, audio only for copyright purposes. So he starts out saying 236 billion, wherever the hell that came from, which is, I mean, think about that, 236 billion. Then goes down to 40 billion for 8 carports.
But I have to say, as much as this is shocking, I wasn't surprised.
A few moments later.
Each state.
Okay, so we got to pause right there. Okay, so the article from factcheck.org that he puts up on the screen is this one from August 2024, then updated on December 9th. Trump misleads on the cost of electronic vehicle chargers. And we'll read a little bit here. In recent speeches, former President Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed that the Biden administration has spent $9 billion to build only 8 electric vehicle charging stations, or even just 8 chargers. That's not accurate. Trump is likely referring to $7.5 billion approved by Congress to help build a network of EV chargers across the U.S. over 5 years. But not all of the money has been spent or even made available to states yet. Experts say the funds are expected to help build thousands of charging stations and more than 30,000 individual charging ports. According to the Federal Highway Administration, as of mid-August, the funds that have been deployed have helped produce 61 charging ports at 15 stations, with another 14,900 in progress. And then it updated that in December, 226 charging ports at 37 stations across 13 states, with more than 24,000 ports in progress. So that's the factcheck.org article that the producer, I guess his name is Jamie, brought up to sort of fact check in real time. And of course, they're asking now, well, who runs that? Where is that from? So now let's go to back to factcheck.org. So you see highlighted right next to factcheck.org is who these organizations represent, a project of the Annenberg Public Policy Center. These were wealthy philanthropists in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is part of the University of Pennsylvania, which is in Philadelphia. You can go to their website. There's an About Us section, blah, blah, blah. They claim to be nonpartisan, which seems essentially fair. When Kamala Harris entered the race, they put out a fact check of her recent speeches and debunked some of her more outrageous lies over the campaign in about 48 hours.
That should be illegal.
Yeah, to be illegal, yeah. Vice President Kamala Harris went from number 2 on the presidential ticket to the presumptive nominee.
Okay, just for the sake of time, what Keaton is doing is defending factcheck.org. I'm going to take us through it in a moment. Defending Annenberg when, for the first time, like, I agree with both Joe and Brett wholeheartedly. Who the fuck is factcheck.org? And everything that he said, I find it really weird that Keaton is taking this tack, but I want to take us through it. See if I can move this. Okay, so I pulled up factcheck.org. Now, I did this for the Plandemic movie. There's like, I'm not sure if the fact-checking part made the movie or they edited it out and it's on the site. And I also do the entire module 11 of my pop propaganda course on this. But oh, shoot. Okay. Factcheck.org. So I took us to the About Us section. They go through how they're funded from Annenberg Public Policy. Emily, do you know about Annenberg to like catch us up to speed on their nastiness?
I mean, I know some stuff about Annenberg, right? You know, it's like one of the, I mean, I don't have a particular specific knowledge about Annenberg, but it's like another one of these things like the Broad Foundation and the Tides Foundation, and right? Like it's one of those blobs.
And they're like the Clinton Foundation. So I graduated from journalism school at USC. The year after I graduated, it became the Annenberg School.
That's right. Yeah, that's why I was
thinking. And I believe that's like, if you can think of them at like a higher learning level of Common Core and training activists, but we'll get into it. So in 2010, we began accepting donations from individual members of the public. We do not seek and have never accepted directly or indirectly any funds from unions, partisan organizations, or advocacy groups. We do not accept funds from corporations with the exception of Meta, which provides funding as part of its initiative to debunk viral deceptions, and Google. There are 2 exceptions.
Right? I don't eat fast food except for McDonald's. Right? That's completely what that is.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
So, and which provided a one-time grant to support our COVID-19 coverage in 2020. And along with YouTube, funded a 2024 to 2025 grant administered by the International Fact-Checking Network. So if you look into all of these, it's a circle jerk of flat. They're all the same, yes, funding each other. Yes. But I wanted, so I clicked on, let me see which this one is. Okay, so just really quick, they go into their, its initiative to debunk.
Right.
Oh, wait, this wasn't the one, sorry. They have, here we go. So this is their list of fake news. This is why they made the exception.
Right.
Oh, shoot. It's not that one. But basically, again, I'm just concerned about time. InfoWars was on that. And then it was like this litany of like conservative papers. But so I took us to Annenberg Public Policy Center.
Yeah.
Just to get a piece of it. And so I clicked through. I mean, let's see. They're into, at this point, I'm starting to think anything HIV, AIDS, especially with the US aid thing, PEPFAR is like a red flag. So they created factcheck.org, but then, all right, I clicked through to their partnerships for they mentioned Civics Renewal Network. So I took us to the partnership side, and I didn't have time to go through all these. I just want to draw our attention to this one, CFR education.
Yeah.
So for Keaton, and I'm sure it's just, he just doesn't know, right? I'm not saying Keaton's a shill or anything like that, but like that they did a whole half-hour piece taking down Brett and Joe for speaking truth about misinformation in these fact-checking orgs. I'm just encouraging Keaton to like respectfully catch himself up to speed on that whole scam, because it's a huge piece of the pie that I was shocked that he hadn't grokked yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's I heard that and had some of the same thoughts, but I also, but I also think that there are a lot of people out there doing the range from intentional to unintentional and just don't know better, misinterpreting what this USAID stuff is all about and what Mike Benz is actually saying, right? And so, like, my guess is that, yes, probably Trump did say something that was not correct. And so...
Oh, I had one other thing. Wait, keep talking. I took a screenshot.
My guess is that Trump said something that was not correct. And so what Joe was quoting was probably wrong. And so there may have been some truth to the idea that Joe and Trump both said a wrong thing about the charging stations. But then to go to factcheck.org and Annenberg as proof that, using that as the proof that they're wrong, it is like this is a perfect display of like, what a fuck ton of trouble we're in terms of people understanding how to separate truth from fiction, a fact from opinion, real life from completely nonsense, right? We don't have reliable sources anymore, period. Like, I don't like this. I'm to the place where like, I don't even know if we should, what the fuck are source documents? They're the documents that they made at the time they were starting the hoax, as opposed to the ones they wrote later or whatever. Like, I don't, right? So that was a display of like how many layers deep into doo-doo we are.
100%. And I just want to share this one piece, because I took a screenshot from factcheck.org. Like, it was troubling. It's like troubling that Brett Weinstein has not heard of Smith-Mundt. And it's just as troubling that one half of Due Dissidents is defending factcheck.org
and Annenberg Foundation, right?
Fucking crazy. So I pulled this up. This was the list of their like fake news stuff, which included InfoWars, but this was on the side. Did former President Joe Biden issue a statement saying that he thought the Equal Rights Amendment should be considered part of the Constitution? Answer, yes. On one of his last days in office, Biden published a statement supporting the ERA, but it has no legal effect. But notice how the question, it's like, no, he said it was law. He said it was an amendment. So the fact check, like, is already shady. So I just share this to say, like, and like I said, I go over this in deeper detail, but like, don't believe jack shit on factcheck.org or any of these fact checking. Like, these are all Smith-Mundt henchmen. Like, there's no such fucking thing. Don't believe them.
Smith-Mundt henchmen. I like that. Maybe that's the title of the show. Smith-Mundt henchmen. Either that or watch Scooby-Doo, bro.
Right?
All right. Okay. So I have, do we want to stick with, okay, do we want to go more, since we're with the Due Dissidents boys, let's go to the Due Dissidents boys right here. And just to update Russell's hard and Keaton's hard troll of Russell Brand and a few others. This entire video is satisfying, so I recommend people watch the entire 45-minute video. But for sake of brevity, we're just going to play the part that strokes our fancy the most.
Obviously, we know that Donald Trump just hosted Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington and offered him his exact objective, Israel's objective for its entire existence, which is the cleansing of the Gaza Strip and its absorption into Greater Israel. I know Trump says the United States is going to take it over. We will get to all that because that is part of the cope. Part of the cope is that, no, it's not going to be Israel's, it's going to be ours. And Netanyahu doesn't like that so much. Really, really pathetic stuff. So we're going to start with the milder cope, and then we're going to get heavier as we go. So we'll start light. We'll start very light here, where Dave Smith says, Trump has done a lot of good things in the last few weeks, but it's hard to overstate how awful the Gaza idea is. Committing an ethnic cleansing on behalf of Israel, who has wanted exactly that way before October 7th, and taking ownership of the region is about as awful an idea as any president has ever had. I hope he reconsiders. That's it? That's all the smoke you got? Disappointing after your passion and knowledge over the past year plus. That's not my burner, I promise. That's somebody else. Picture unrelated. Nothing's happened yet, other than Trump getting a ceasefire. I'm hoping this doesn't happen. If it does, there will be plenty of smoke. No, something very significant has happened. This is part of the cope, is to downplay what happened on Tuesday as a negotiating tactic. Again, it's not an exaggeration. This would be like if Churchill surrendered and then hosted Hitler in London and said, you know what, this Poland thing isn't going to work. It's not going to work.
Dave Smith has never seen a degradation or humiliation that he will not submit to in order to keep his audience. This is also what we call in the business audience capture. This is a man who was shown a picture, a meme, favorably comparing Nazis marching through Paris to drag queens at the Paris Olympics who couldn't just straight out say, yeah, that's fucked up, who felt a need to defend it. Now that is audience capture. That's what you call audience capture. He knows where his bread is buttered. He knows how much he needs to bring in to cover his nut, and he's not gonna piss off the people who fund him.
I'm going to pause for a second. It is fascinating how quiet Dave Smith has been on a lot of these topics since the election.
Yup.
Right?
Yep.
Like it's really, like why he has said a lot of things that I like in the past. Like I found him to have had nothing compelling to say since the election, basically. Okay, continuing because
But he's all over my algorithm. Like he's kind of like up there with Lex. Every day I'm getting something from him.
All right, continuing.
That's it. He'll go along with anything. That's why you can't take these people seriously. Like, don't tell me, oh, but he said some stuff about Trump and Israel. Look, when push comes to shove, these people will all put the knee pads on. They're not going to go to the wall.
Well, he just did an episode yesterday. He just did an episode yesterday talking about all the Maha stuff. And the Maha coalition, that's where most of the heaviest cope is coming from.
Yep.
Because they're not quite all in on MAGA. They were the people who are like, yeah, we like the Maha, and so we'll team up with MAGA, even though MAGA's pro-genocide. We have to kind of pretend that they're movable on genocide.
Maha has always been flexible on genocide, so you guys have that incorrect, right? Because Maha is, Bobby as the answer to everything, and so they've always been morally flexible on that question.
Because otherwise, we're trading in seed oils for genocide, right? And that's where a lot of this is coming from. Oops, sorry, wrong slide. Okay, well, like I said, that was that was nothing. That was nothing compared to what we're about to see. So here's Russell Brand.
Yeah. This is my favorite part.
And even this, the world.
I am the Eggman.
Yeah. So here's Russell Brand. Regarding the Israel-Gaza situation. Regarding the Israel-Gaza situation, as a Christian, when you read the Old Testament, you have to acknowledge that there's a unique, particular, and sacred relationship between the Jewish people and that land. Where is that line drawn, and what is permissible, and what isn't? Let's hear it.
Israel's problems would be the US's problems like never before, and the US would be permanently associated with Israel in the eyes of the world. Relatively ironic, right after Trump got elected to put America first, which I'm pretty sure didn't include settling a colony in the most conflictual land on earth. And in terms of soft power, not sure Americans have fully fought through the consequences of becoming one and the same with an apartheid ethno-nationalist state that's abhorred by such a large proportion of the world's population. That's where I would sort of declare my part as a Christian. When you read the Old Testament, you start to have to acknowledge that there is a unique, particular, and sacred relationship between the Jewish people and that land. And I wonder where.
It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
He doesn't look well. He doesn't look. It's like his soul is gone. His mirth. His like. This is a weird, dark Russell.
Totally, right?
I mean, even the outfit.
I mean, they got him. He's having to literally betray what he believes in and disguise it as newfound religion in order to be able to, I mean, I don't know what they threatened him with, right? But
it's such an audacious storytelling device to get Russell Brand, like a known hedonist, to convert, and then within a few months of his very public conversion to change the religion. Like, it's so bold.
But it's also like, you know, we have an idea as to how you can walk back everything you've said you've believed for at least the last decade and maybe the last two. We can all put it under the umbrella of this conversion you've had to Christianity and a newfound understanding of the Holy Book, right? It's so audacious, dude. Here we go.
Where is it we're drawing the line of what's acceptable?
Okay, so this is in line with what Russell's thesis was last time.
When Diddy wants to shove an egg up your ass, and you already have half a dozen eggs in your ass. You can't put 7 eggs in the ass. So what do you do with the 6 eggs that are already there?
Yeah. Did he become a Christian so that he could equivocate on Israel? Because it sounds like maybe that was like the Israel defense is the ends. I mean, if your blackmail theory is correct, that would make sense. That, hey, I'll become a Christian, so then I could say, well, I've kind of come to see this conflict through a different lens because I'm on record advocating for the boycott of Israel. But now that I'm a Christian, I see this through a slightly different lens where I get to both sides this in this way. Hold on, he's not done.
And let me just, for anyone who did not see my video, Diddy's compound was raided March 25th. He does his baptism in his tidy whities April 28th. I don't think that's a coincidence.
And that now gives him new perspective on the Israel.
And for those who were not here the last few weeks, what was his name? Suge Knight, I think, was explaining to Chris Cuomo about an egg in the booty, an egg in the hole ritual that they would do at Diddy's parties. And then Russell found a picture of Russell Dobular found a picture of Russell Brand with Diddy holding an egg and smiling, right? And so I think that we know what the videos may have captured. Yeah, that's last week's episode, boiled eggs and ice cream cones. Oh, and I forgot we should tell the audience, and I think I told you, right? One of our fabulous listeners located the source of the ice cream cone sweatshirt, and it was a place called Pink Pony Ice Cream in Boca Grande, Florida, right? So Big Mouth, Boca Grande, right? Ice cream, Pink Pony. And then someone later in the comment section said, oh yeah, ride the Pink Pony, right? That like puts it right up there with, Voodoo Donuts and Comet Ping Pong. I mean, I have mixed feelings about those ideas or whatever it is, but this seems pretty obvious. And the ice cream cone has like a glow around it. Like it looked like, like sunshine rays, like illumination, right? So I suppose if you ride the Pink Pony and open your Boca Grande, you can get illuminated when the boiled egg turns into an ice cream cone. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I don't know what the fuck is going on here, but damn, right?
It's so dark. It's just so creepy.
It's so creepy, right? All right, let's finish this part. I love Russell's British voice with the half dozen egg story. I'm just like,
oh yeah. This one's so close to his heart, this whole Russell Brand plotline.
This is when he really figured out how it all works.
Totally.
Israel-Palestine conflict.
To have to acknowledge that there is a unique, particular, and sacred relationship between the Jewish people and that land. And I wonder, where is it we're drawing the line of what's acceptable, permissible, and what's not acceptable? Are we saying that the colonization of America, for example, is unacceptable? Certainly would have seemed such to the people that were occupying this land.
Wow.
Yeah, we do say that.
We do say
Actually.
that. Yeah.
We do.
Actually, we do say that. Yeah.
It's so funny how they all go to that as if it's some kind of a mic drop rather than an admission of what the nature of Israel is.
Yeah. That is just, it doesn't even dignify a response, but where is the line? You know damn well where the line is. You were.
All right, we'll stop right there with that one. All right, so where do you want to go next? My next bit is I have a Mike Benz on Tucker Carlson. That's a short bit, and then I have the Sabby. It's like the third person of Sabby watching Nico House watch whatever. That one's longer, so we're getting tight on.
Okay, I want to do the Mike Benz, but I just want to share a still really quick.
Please.
We're going to squeeze it all in. It's going to be seamless. Okay. So I uploaded a video on YouTube, which I rarely, if ever, do, only trailers. But this was like a 90-second video. And the thumbnail is like me as a fucking mongoloid. So I go to change it. It's not an option. This is my new bad girl wrong think punishment. I can only change the thumbnail on the YouTube mobile app, which of course I don't have. I don't do that fucking shit. But we talked about this last week, how I couldn't opt out of the PayPal thing unless it was through the app.
Was it a YouTube short?
It went up as a short, but I posted it as like a regular video.
That's interesting. I've never been unable to change the thumbnail.
No, I always get these it's like me having weird rashes on my body that no one's ever seen. I always have these weird YouTube roadblocks that no one else has. And I even went on to, because the only place to get any customer support from the big tech lizards is on Twitter. So I post on Twitter and I was really nice about it, but like, I'm going to need some advice from you guys as to how to change the thumbnail on the computer. I don't have a smartphone. I just go with, I don't have one. And they send me a link and a screenshot that's like totally normal. Like, oh, just do this and go to this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have that option anymore. I sent them a screenshot and I think they're flummoxed.
Right? You have like some special other version of YouTube that was created just for you.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know people who've experienced some weird shit like that, right? So, all right. Okay. Mike Benz on Tucker Carlson. And we all have to be looking at this suspiciously because Mike Benz was on Tucker Carlson last week because this whole USAID story like really links back to a lot of work he's done. And then today, in one day, he's on Joe Rogan for 3.5 hours and Sean Ryan for 2.5 hours. Like, it's like op alert. However, in this particular case, I have paid a lot of attention to how careful Mike Benz is to be specific in the language he uses and what he actually means and what he doesn't mean and what is his opinion versus what the things say. That like he's one of these people that like I don't know that I would say it as I don't have concerns about, but like I think it's with him rather than the idea that he's concerning. It's the idea of like it's concerning what other people can do with the information that he's laying out, what parts they can choose to highlight and distort and which parts they ignore. So like it's less about him and more about what people are going to do with what he has sort of, spread out on the table for us. And this to me of the whole interview, there's lots of interesting things in the Tucker Carlson interview. I haven't had a chance to listen to the Joe Rogan or the Sean Ryan yet. But to me, this was the part that was interesting and really, really more revelatory not surprising about Tucker, but I think this is something people should pay attention to. Here we go.
Which is why I'm using this time to be able to talk with you today on something that's on this, which is that you're going to need to understand the purpose for these things and the scope of it, and be able to look at just how bad it is with clear eyes, and not necessarily, I mean, have your rage boiling, your anger moment. And when that clears, a fundamental reorganization of the way we carry out soft power is going to have to replace what we used to do if we don't do these dirty deeds anymore.
But it has to be in the service of goals that, are worth achieving, like having a strong and free country.
Right. The only problem with that is Trump represented something very different than that vision that was expressed by the Bush-Biden blob uniparty that had been there. And in countries that are not stable, elections completely change everything. And this maybe gets to whether or not, the problem is
This 7-second trick helped me at the age of 62 eliminate. If I were to die tomorrow, I would want every die.
Is not necessarily just the institutions, but rather.
What happened to Tom Hanks that he's doing YouTube commercials?
Right. Stranded on an island with a volleyball or something, right? Or soccer ball.
Or the sort of legacy of momentum of all these previous political forces, because you could see a situation where then, okay, every time a MAGA type populist candidate wins an election, all of our foreign policy institutions switch radically in one direction, calling that American interests. And then a sort of internationalist blob, a globalist person wins an election, and then all the institutions switch all of that. And so, you can't even build permanent structures in foreign countries or permanent networks because everything's so schizophrenic.
Or in your own. I mean, this is the problem with our system, is that it doesn't have continuity. Right. And the whole purpose of the deep state is to provide no one ever says this, but I grew up around it. The purpose of the deep state is provide continuity in
continuity of government,
in a democracy in which leadership changes every 4 or 8 years. So how does that work exactly? So you have the political structure that runs everything at the request of the population. That's called democracy. But then you have, longitudinal interests that have to be represented regardless of who's in power.
Right.
And so, the deep state arose in response to an actual need. You have to have continuity.
Right. Politics stops at the water's edge, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. But then, but at the same time, the deep state has to be in some deep sense responsive to the population, or else you have tyranny.
Right.
So it's a very, democracy is not an easy system to administer. It's an easy one to talk about. And it doesn't work that well in some ways, obviously. I want it to. I'm not against democracy, of course, being an American, but it doesn't, it's hard.
Yeah.
So, no, I agree. I think the big change is the deep state, these institutions were taken over by incredibly dumb, short-sighted, selfish people. I don't think the problem is, having an elite. The problem is having an inadequate, mediocre, selfish elite that doesn't actually like the country they're running. So that's just my personal editorial position on that. But
right. So,
Whoa.
right. So there was a lot there. Right. But the correct, I don't know, I don't like this language that some people are elite and some people are not. It makes me feel like a fucking class 3 at GO, looking up at everybody who's class 1 going, they're so much closer to elite. It's a very gymnastics thing. We had a level, right, in gymnastics called elite. I think you can't stop that from happening in a society, that some people amass tremendous influence and resources and whatever, and so there becomes this thing that for some reason, because of the way we've been mind controlled in society, that people with influence and money are more important than other people or whatever it is. You get indoctrinated into calling them an elite. But the idea that those people should have power or be part of government, or that government is a path to being part of the elite, like our fucktards use it for, right? That's the issue. And so like this sort of tie between the deep state, which he is saying is necessary for continuity, and that automatically means that we need that it's the elite, because they're both things are needed. That's where the problem is, right? And so it was interesting that he just acknowledged all of that right there. I believe we need a deep state, and I believe that we need an elite, and that those two things can be connected or one and the same.
Totally. It reminded me of Eric Weinstein also defending elites. Like they're so lockstep. And then Eric Weinstein saying we need better lies.
Right.
And then chief propagandist, son of chief propagandist Tucker Carlson, the one to disseminate the better lies. But I do disagree with you. I know that we do not need an elite or hierarchy, because we have this.
Just to be clear, I don't think we need it. I think the way our society has been indoctrinated, people equate wealth or some type of influence with being an elite. And that's what I do not think we need them.
Okay. Word.
Yeah. I don't think we need them. I just think that's a phenomenon that happens. Some people have more influence or resources than others, and people have, for whatever reason, allowed themselves to be indoctrinated into this idea that the people with more resources and more influence are somehow better or more important than they are, and to refer to them as the elite.
Correct.
I don't like that.
Bullshit.
I don't like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move it back to gymnastics. It makes sense in gymnastics, right? Okay. All right. I think we're gonna skip the Ian Carroll part today, because I think I'd rather go to the chat room for a few minutes before we wrap.
I have a comment from the chat room on that. Clocks Finley 7 said, what's the record for people doing a video commenting on a video of people commenting on a video? Because
totally.
The one that you were just about to play, it's so like fractal today. It's very fractal meta.
Right. But this is the this is the sort of the level of what media and social media and propaganda has done, is that we have like all of these layers of like, do you remember the first time that like on acid you ever realized you were observing yourself in a way you hadn't before? And then like as you got more sophisticated in the LSD space, you were observe yourself, and like there was layers out you could go to. It's almost like the LSDing of the media kind of space, right? All right. My chat box is doing that weird thing. Thank you to Robin, who gave a super chat earlier. I don't know if I can even see it if you guys do all caps or anything, because my thing seems to have pooped out.
Mine pooped out as well, and I was trying to correct my like unfinished statement for Steve's crypto Christian comment. So I got on a different browser, but I can't chat or anything, but I can at least see what we have. And I just want to acknowledge Tara, who has the same weirdness, including the rash that doctors have never seen before. I always consider that communication from my home planet, and it's just a matter of learning to decode the rashes and the spots for the message.
Right. That's Laura has, she also has some interesting rashes sometimes, but she also has an interesting birthmark that does like translate to me as like code that I'm supposed to recognize. Right.
Yes.
So yeah, I think there's definitely that.
Where's the birthmark?
I can't see the chat room at all, guys, so I can't see anything. So if there's any questions or comments in all caps, you're going to have to tell me, Dani, and if anybody has super chatted and I'm not acknowledging it, my apologies, I can't see anything.
I don't see anything. Someone mentioned something. I remember seeing it earlier about the pink collared shirt. Was that a line from a song? Was that mentioned? Is that something that's in the collective? These pink shirts? I'm just curious if anyone in the chat knows, or you know.
I mean, like it means something in the conspiratorial realm. I don't know. Like I just, I know that like it's like a weird preppy thing to wear those like salmon pink polo shirts and shit like that. I always thought it was weird when people wore, guys wore those, but yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
We don't have any questions.
Okay. Oh, here we are. Now, can I see whatever it is? I can't see. I can't even, like, the box is blank basically for me.
We're just talking about the rash and Steve's North Node, Neptune, Pisces. I don't know. Ian Carroll was getting a lot of flack on Twitter this week since your last word salad. I mean, the whole alt media community is on him like flies on shit. You were gonna play a clip about it.
Yeah, we just don't have time. I'm gonna be on the BG Cast with Steven Stathis over on Rumble in an hour, and so I need to eat some dinner before I do that. I will post. It'll be a live stream. I'll post a link, I guess, here on YouTube when we're done, and I can work YouTube and like maybe over on Facebook or something if people want to come check that out. But that's why I have a hard out. So I guess we'll just kind of sign off. If you guys, we will have a new episode of Regular Words, wordspodcast.locals.com, promo code Welcome to Words, posting here in the next couple of days, where we get to know Walter Kern a little bit better. Yes, Dani?
Has that not posted yet?
It has not posted yet because
So housekeeping. I'm not going to be here next week, or I don't know if you're doing a show.
I might come do just a live stream here by myself. Yeah, just to keep the house full here. Yep.
Awesome. And then we did get a question. Where's the birthmark?
Well, it's not it's on her. It's like her arm and like back, right? I like it, right? But it does feel like there's like it's like something I'm supposed to recognize, or like a code. Like I remember when I saw it, I was like immediately very, very curious about it, right? So
can you send like a rendering or something? I'm curious to know like what, like, does it look like a communication, a letter? Is it figurative?
No, it's not. Like let me talk to Laura about how if and how she's comfortable with me describing her birthmark or whatever it is, right? But like for me, it's endearing, and it also feels like it was part of the recognition as of her as like someone important to me beyond just this version of life that we're in sort of right now, right? Nice. Anywho, okay. I think that's going to be it. Sorry that I can't see what anyone might or might not be saying. Thanks for joining us.
And we're getting a lot of hearts and thank yous and well wishes. Thank you guys. We love you.
Yay. Dani will not be here next week because she will be off grid, but I will be here going on and on about some nonsense or other. So come chat, come play, come ask questions, we'll see what
it's super chat. Send her some dough.
Send super chats. Yes. All right, guys. See you later. Have a good evening. Bye.